Talking about the 3 top ways for you to ensure that you close more rent-to-rent deals, have better conversations, and come out the other end with a better, stronger relationship with those landlords that you enter into deals with. Well, hopefully these 3 top tips are going to help you with every negotiation that you go into. The more you do, the better you will get. But here are some tips to get you started. So number 1 is all about identifying the pain points that landlords are likely to be experiencing. Now, this is something that you're going to do pre-negotiation, pre-meeting. You're going to educate yourself on what is it that landlords are likely to be suffering when it comes to their properties. Now, this might be things such as rent arrears, it might be maintenance, too much maintenance going on. It might simply just be the headache that they're receiving from tenants constantly on the phone. It might even be the fact that their agent is terrible. There are many, many different pain points that landlords are likely to be suffering. Now, your responsibility as a rent-to-renter is to understand what these problems are likely to be. Now, the reason that I advise you to check these out and educate on these before you go into a property conversation with the landlord is the fact that the landlord is not likely to be experiencing all of these pain points. They're likely to be experiencing maybe 1, 2, and your job, your responsibility at that meeting with them is to get that information out of them so that you can effectively offer them the solution that we'll come on to in step 2. But just staying on step 1 a little bit, we're talking now about the meeting. So when you go into that meeting, after educating yourself on all the various landlord problems that they're going to have, you're going to be speaking with them and asking them very open questions. When you're walking around the property, you don't need to be scripted, you don't need to be hard selling, you don't need to be interrogating them for information, because more often than not, landlords that are experiencing problems are very likely to let you know what those problems are. Ultimately, because they like to have a good moan about what the problem is, and the fact that you're having this conversation already means that you're likely to have sparked their interest through some form of lead generation activity. So your responsibility now is to really drill down into exactly what the pain points are. What is the most acute pain point that they are suffering? And like I say, it's open questions. Get them to converse with you. Get them to talk with you as you walk around the property doing that property viewing. Ask them questions about their current tenants, their past tenants, the maintenance that they've had to do on the property. You're leading them into the points where they're going to very clearly demonstrate to you exactly what that pain point is. So, at this point, you've identified what that pain point is. Now, a common mistake then for people to make is that they completely ignore the information that they've just got, if they've got that information in the first place, and then they go into selling all the solutions that the rent-to-rent strategy offers, none of which are really hitting home with that landlord as to what that pain point is that you've already identified that they're suffering. There are many, many benefits to the rent-to-rent strategy. There are all sorts of things like the guaranteed rent, the no maintenance, the no tenant management, no having to think about your property throughout the year, statements, all these things that you can effectively let the landlord know that you do as part of your rent-to-rent service, but only a handful of those are going to be directly linked to the pain point that you have identified in step 1. So step 2 really is, by identifying what step 1's pain point is, you need to absolutely focus on the solution that that solves the property problem, the most acute property problem that landlord is experiencing. So for example, if you identified that the current tenants are in quite substantial arrears and the landlord hasn't received rent for 3 or 4 months, well, now what you've got is the opportunity to absolutely drill home the benefits against arrears. Things like guaranteed rent per month. It's coming from you, not from the tenants. You handle all the tenants. So if the tenants are in arrears, it doesn't matter. You still pay that landlord their amount per month. You don't need to chase tenants for rent. You don't need to deal with tenants being difficult. All of those things are going to really hit home with that landlord who's experiencing the pain point of rent arrears. Of course, you can do this with all the various different the maintenance problems and all of those things. You can sell the solutions very specific to those problems, and that is absolutely going to help you close more deals with more landlords if you speak directly to the problems that they are experiencing. So those are the first two steps of negotiating better deals with landlords. Now the third step is when it comes to really explaining the process around how it is that you work. Again, another very big mistake, a common mistake that people make, is that they go in and start talking rent to rent, they start talking jargon, they start talking about the strategy of rent to rent and all the wording around that itself. And actually, most landlords do not have a clue what rent to rent is. Even the name rent to rent actually could lead them into being falsely thinking that it's subletting or something of a similar ilk, which of course it's not, because of the way that you set up those contracts. So you need to be very clear in explaining the process of how you operate in a language that they understand. So step 3 is absolutely focusing on the jargon-free description of what service it is that you offer and speak directly to them in a language that they understand. Now, if you're dealing with landlords, which this session is specifically about, landlords understand letting agents, lettings and management agents, property management. All of those terms are terms that the landlords understand. What they will have are potentially experiences with those letting agents, those property managers that are negative ones. And again, we go back to step 1 and 2, which is basically identify that that's a problem, solve this problem with your solution, with the rent-to-rent strategy. You know, you're a specialist agent, you're a specialist managing agent where you deal with all the lettings and property management, but the beauty of it is that not only do you do all of that, actually you've got one point of contact where you give a guaranteed monthly rental payment and you deal with absolutely everything else there is to deal with, leaving the landlord with no contact whatsoever other than confirmation of their rental amount being paid in every month. So really that summarizes 3 top tips for negotiating much better with landlords. You've got step 1, which is understand the problems that landlords experience and get them to identify specifically which one it is that hurts them the most. Step 2 is you're going to then offer the solution that directly solves the problem, the issue, the headache that that landlord is experiencing in order to make them feel that you're speaking directly to them. And then step 3 is when you start to describe the service in a bit more detail with regards to how it works, the process moving forwards. Avoid any sort of strategy specific jargon like the term rent to rent. And then what you want to do is specifically talk in a language that they understand, generally the language of lettings and property management. Now, if you remember those 3 things going into every single negotiation, you will absolutely nail it. The more you do it, the better you will get, the more experience you will get of identifying landlord problems, landlord challenges, and that's going to put you in a much stronger position moving forwards with your deal negotiation. And remember that it is all right to make mistakes. It is all right to not know everything. You are going to have experiences where the landlord doesn't necessarily fit nicely into the boxes that you were hopefully prepared for. That's fine. All you need to do is go back to them, explain that unfortunately that's not something you can answer at the moment. It's quite a specific issue that you need to just look a bit deeper into, and you'll come back to them within a certain time frame. Go away, find the information, which of course is a fantastic opportunity. If you're a member of the Insider Circle, you can ask us in our members only Facebook group. Someone will come back to you straight away, and you can then go back to that landlord and explain it confidently, honestly, and then continue the negotiation process from there. So that's it. Remember those 3 top tips and you will certainly be on your way to closing more rent-to-rent deals as you move forward on your property journey.